Maria was a woman who never stopped dreaming, even when life gave her every reason to give up. She worked as a maid in a rich neighborhood, cleaning big houses filled with lights, laughter, and children wearing neat school uniforms. Every morning, while mopping the marble floors, she often looked at those children and thought of her own little girl, Sophia. She wished her daughter could have the same chance, to wear a clean uniform, carry a school bag, and walk proudly into a classroom. Maria lived in a small rented room at the edge of the city. The walls were cracked, and the roof leaked during rainy nights, but to her, it was home because Sophia lived there. Her daughter was the reason she woke up every day at dawn, cooked a small meal, and took 2 buses to reach her work. Life was hard, but Maria never complained. She had only one goal, to make sure Sophia got a good education and never had to live the same life she did. Every evening after work, Maria came home tired, her back aching and her hands rough from cleaning. But the moment she saw Sophia waiting by the door, holding her old, worn-out books, her tiredness disappeared. Together they would sit under the weak yellow light bulb, with Maria helping her read small stories and solve simple math problems. Sometimes, Sophia would fall asleep on her mother's lap while studying, and Maria would smile, brushing her daughter's hair away from her face. Even though Maria didn't go to school, she knew education was powerful. When she was young, she had to leave her village school after her father fell sick. She started working to support her family and never got the chance to learn again. But she never forgot how badly she wanted to study. That same hunger for knowledge, she saw now in Sophia's bright eyes. Sophia loved books and asked questions about everything: why stars shine, how airplanes fly, why some kids go to big schools while others don't. Maria didn't always have the answers, but she always told Sophia, "Study well, my child. One day you'll know everything." Sometimes, Maria would pass by St. Clair's Academy, a grand private school with tall gates and well-dressed children. She worked as a part-time cleaner there. Every morning, she would watch the students arriving in cars, their parents walking them inside proudly. She would whisper to herself, "One day my Sophia will come here too." It was a quiet promise she made to herself, one she carried in her heart every day. On Sundays, her only day off, Maria would take Sophia to the park. They would sit on a bench, sharing homemade sandwiches, while Maria told her stories about strong women who changed their lives through education. Sophia listened with shining eyes and said, "Mama, I'll study hard. I'll make you proud." Those words were enough to give Maria strength for another week of work. She started saving money in a small tin box hidden under her bed. Every coin she dropped into it was a piece of her dream. Sometimes she skipped meals or took extra cleaning jobs just to add a few more notes inside. The neighbors often told her she was wasting her time. Why send a maid's daughter to a rich school? She'll never fit in there. But Maria never listened. She knew dreams only come true for those who dare to hold on to them, even when everyone else lets go. One night, as rain poured outside, Maria sat by the window counting her savings. It wasn't much, but enough for the admission form and first month's fee. She looked at Sophia, who was drawing a picture of a school with big windows and green gardens. "That's your school?" Maria asked, smiling. Sophia nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mama. That's where I'll study one day." Maria hugged her tightly, tears filling her eyes. In that quiet, humble room, Maria made a decision. She would not wait any longer. She would go to St. Clair's Academy and ask for her daughter's admission. She didn't know what the people there would say, but she believed that if her heart was pure and her reason was strong, somehow things would work out. That night, she ironed her only clean dress and washed Sophia's old shoes until they looked new. She didn't sleep much. She kept imagining the moment when she would walk into the school office and proudly say, "I want to admit my daughter here." In her mind, she could already see Sophia in a school uniform, holding her books, her eyes full of hope. For Maria, this wasn't just about school. It was about dignity, pride, and love. She wanted the world to see that a maid's daughter could dream just as big as anyone else's. The thought filled her heart with courage. She didn't have wealth or status, but she had something stronger, a mother's determination. The next morning, before the sun rose, Maria and Sophia left for St. Clair's Academy. Maria held Sophia's hand tightly as they walked through the quiet streets. She smiled softly and said, "No matter what happens today, remember, my child, you are no less than anyone." Sophia looked up and smiled, unaware that the day ahead would change their lives forever. For now, all she knew was that her mother believed in her, and that was enough to make her feel brave. The next morning, the city was waking up slowly. The air was cool, and the streets were still quiet when Maria and Sophia stepped out of their small room. Maria had wrapped Sophia's hair neatly into 2 small braids, tied with blue ribbons she had bought from a street stall. Sophia wore her cleanest dress, and even though it was old, Maria had washed and ironed it carefully the night before. She wanted her daughter to look her best, because today was an important day. As they walked, Sophia held her mother's hand tightly. She was excited but nervous. "Mama, will they let me study there?" she asked softly. Maria smiled, though her heart was trembling. "Yes, my child," she said. "We'll try our best. God will help us." Inside, she prayed that all her years of hard work would mean something today. When they reached St. Clair's Academy, Sophia's eyes grew wide. The school looked like a palace. There were tall iron gates painted gold, a big garden full of flowers, and children running around in neat uniforms. Some were dropped off by shiny cars, their parents kissing them goodbye before driving away. Everything looked so perfect that Sophia whispered, "It's so beautiful, Mama." Maria nodded. She had seen this place many times before while working there part-time as a cleaner, but today it felt different. Today she wasn't there to mop floors. She was there as a mother, one who came to ask for a future for her child. Her heart beat fast as she approached the gate. The guard recognized her and looked surprised. "Maria, you're here this early? There's no cleaning today," he said. Maria smiled nervously. "I'm not here to work today, bye. I came to see the principal for my daughter's admission." The guard raised his eyebrows but said nothing. He opened the gate slowly, letting them in. As they walked inside, Maria looked at Sophia and whispered, "Keep your head high, my love. Don't be scared." Inside the campus, everything felt like another world. The walls were painted bright white. There were big notice boards filled with pictures of students winning trophies, and the smell of fresh flowers filled the air. Maria felt a lump in her throat. She wanted Sophia to be part of this world so badly. When they reached the reception, a lady in a crisp uniform looked up from her desk. "Yes? How can I help you?" she asked politely, though her tone was distant. Maria stepped forward and said softly, "I'd like to apply for my daughter's admission." The lady glanced at Maria's simple clothes and then at Sophia, who stood quietly beside her. "Which grade?" the receptionist asked without much interest. "First grade, ma'am," Maria replied. "She is a bright child. She loves to study. I've brought her school records from the community center." She held out a small file she had carefully wrapped in plastic to keep it clean. The receptionist took it and looked at the worn papers. "And what's your occupation, Mrs.?" "Just Maria," she said quickly. "I work as a housekeeper." The woman's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You mean a maid?" she said, her voice turning colder. Maria nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." The receptionist sighed. "You do know this is a private school, right? The fees are quite high. Are you sure you can afford it?" Maria swallowed hard. "I've saved money. I'll manage. I just want my daughter to have a chance." The lady gave a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Wait here," she said and walked into the principal's office. Maria stood there holding Sophia's hand, trying to stay calm. She could feel people staring. A few teachers passed by, glancing at her curiously, whispering to each other. Sophia looked up and whispered, "Mama, did we do something wrong?" Maria bent down and said gently, "No, my love, we are just waiting. Be patient." After a few minutes, the receptionist returned and said, "The principal will see you now." Maria took a deep breath and walked in. The office was large and bright, with shelves full of books and trophies. Behind the desk sat Mrs. Warren, the principal, a well-dressed woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a calm face. She didn't smile. Maria greeted her politely. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm Maria, and this is my daughter Sophia. I'd like to enroll her in your school." Mrs. Warren looked at Sophia, then at Maria's simple clothes. "Do you work here?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Maria said quietly. "I clean classrooms sometimes." Mrs. Warren leaned back in her chair and said, "I see. Well, our school has high academic standards and certain expectations. I'm afraid it might not be suitable for your child." Maria's heart sank. "Ma'am, please, she's very smart. She reads and writes better than most children her age. I'll work extra hours if I have to. Please just give her a chance." Mrs. Warren gave a small smile, not a kind one, but the kind that comes before saying no. "It's not about money, dear," she said. "It's about the environment. Children from different backgrounds may find it hard to adjust here. Maybe a government school would be better." Maria felt her eyes burn, but she refused to cry. She held Sophia's hand tightly and said softly, "Thank you, ma'am, for your time." Then she turned and walked out of the office. As they stepped outside, Sophia asked in a small voice, "Mama, am I not good enough for this school?" Maria stopped walking and knelt down. She lifted Sophia's chin and said, "No, my darling, you are good enough, more than enough. They just don't see it yet." Sophia nodded, but her eyes were wet. Maria hugged her and whispered, "One day, they will know who you are. One day they'll understand." As they left the school, Maria's heart was heavy, but her spirit wasn't broken. She didn't know that fate was already preparing something unexpected. Something that would soon change both their lives forever. Maria couldn't sleep that night. She kept replaying the principal's words in her mind. "This school isn't suitable for your child." Those words stung her heart like thorns. She had faced rejection before, but this time it felt different. This time it wasn't just about her. It was about Sophia, her little girl who had done nothing wrong, yet was treated as if she didn't belong. In their small room, Sophia lay beside her mother, staring at the ceiling. "Mama," she whispered, "why didn't the lady want me in her school? Did I not study enough?" Maria's throat tightened. She turned toward her daughter, brushed her hair softly, and said, "No, my love, you studied very well. You're the smartest girl I know. Some people just can't see how special you are." Sophia tried to smile, but her eyes were full of sadness. Maria hugged her tightly and whispered, "Don't cry, my child. One day, they will regret not letting you in." The next morning, Maria still went to work. Life didn't stop just because her heart was hurting. At St. Clair's Academy, she quietly cleaned the classrooms, the same rooms where her daughter was denied a place. Each desk she wiped reminded her of Sophia sitting there, learning and laughing with the other children. She imagined it so clearly that for a moment it felt real. But when the laughter of students echoed through the hallway, reality hit again, and her eyes filled with tears. As she cleaned, two teachers walked in. They didn't notice Maria at first. "Did you hear about that maid who tried to admit her daughter here?" one of them whispered. The other laughed softly. "Yes, can you imagine? What was she thinking? This is St. Clair's, not a charity school." Maria froze, her hands shaking as she held the cleaning cloth. Every word cut deep. She wanted to speak up, to tell them that her daughter was as capable as any of their students, but her voice wouldn't come out. She simply turned her back, pretending not to hear, and wiped away her tears before they could fall. Later that day, when the classrooms were empty, Maria sat alone in one of the chairs, staring at the blackboard. She whispered to herself, "Why is the world so cruel to people like us? All I wanted was a chance for my daughter." She remembered how she used to clean this very classroom before the principal entered, how she'd often see children leaving behind notebooks and pencils, things her daughter could only dream of owning. That evening, when she returned home, Sophia greeted her with a drawing in her hands. It was a picture of a school with a garden and children playing. Above it, Sophia had written, "My dream school." Maria smiled sadly and kissed her forehead. "It's beautiful, Sophia," she said softly. "Don't ever stop dreaming." The next day, Maria decided to try again. Maybe she could talk to someone else. Maybe the principal would change her mind if she explained more clearly. She dressed neatly and took Sophia along once more. When they reached the school, the receptionist frowned as soon as she saw them. "You again?" she said in a cold voice. "Didn't the principal already tell you her decision?" Maria nodded. "Yes, ma'am. But please, I just want to speak once more. I'm not asking for charity. I'll pay. I can even clean more classrooms to cover some fees." The woman gave a short, harsh laugh. "That's not how things work here. We don't accept people who can't maintain our standards. Please don't waste our time." Her words hit Maria like a slap. She felt her face burn with embarrassment. People in the hallway turned to look. Some of the students were standing nearby, curious about what was happening. One of them whispered, "Isn't that the maid who cleans here?" A few others giggled. Sophia, not understanding everything, tugged on her mother's hand and said softly, "Mama, why are they laughing?" Maria's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't answer. She just wanted to get out of there. But before she could move, the receptionist said one more thing. The thing that broke Maria's heart completely. "You should be proud of being a maid, not ashamed. But please understand your place. This school is not for your kind." Maria stood frozen for a moment. The words echoed in her ears. Not for your kind. She felt something deep inside her shatter, but she refused to let anyone see her cry. She straightened her back, looked the woman in the eye, and said quietly, "Thank you for reminding me who I am. But remember, ma'am, my daughter will study. And one day, she'll make you remember this day." Without another word, Maria turned and walked out of the school with Sophia. Her eyes were wet, but she held her head high. Sophia walked beside her, confused and quiet. When they reached the gate, Maria finally stopped and knelt down. She took Sophia's small hands in hers and said, "Listen to me, my love. People may laugh at you now. They may call you names. But never forget, you are not less than anyone. One day, you'll show them that a maid's daughter can shine brighter than all of them." Sophia nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with tears. "I promise, Mama. I'll study hard. I'll make you proud." Maria hugged her tightly, whispering, "You already do, my child. You already do." As they walked home, Maria didn't notice the luxury car that stopped near the gate. Inside sat a man in a dark suit, watching them quietly. His eyes followed the little girl and her mother with deep curiosity, almost recognition. But Maria didn't see him. She was too busy holding on to her daughter, too lost in her thoughts to realize that this stranger would soon change everything in their lives. That evening, Maria sat by the window, staring at the stars. Her heart was heavy, but not broken. She whispered a prayer into the night sky, asking for strength and for justice. Not through anger, but through destiny. Somewhere deep inside, she believed that the world had to notice someday. She didn't know it yet, but fate had already started writing the next chapter. One that would turn her pain into power, and her humiliation into something far greater than she could imagine. The next morning, the sun was shining bright, but Maria's heart still felt heavy. She had gone to work again at St. Clair's Academy, because life didn't stop for anyone's sadness. Sophia was at home, reading her old books, while Maria cleaned the same classrooms where her daughter had been rejected. Every sound, the laughter of children, the ringing of the school bell, reminded her of what she had lost. As she wiped the glass windows, she saw cars stopping outside the gate, one after another. Parents dropped off their children with proud smiles. Maria sighed softly and whispered to herself, "Maybe one day, Sophia too will walk through these gates." She tried to focus on her work, but deep down, her thoughts were filled with worry. How would she ever give Sophia the education she deserved? At the same time, a black luxury car stopped in front of the school. The guard quickly straightened his uniform and opened the gate. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out. His name was Mr. Adrian Cole. He was a famous businessman in the city, known for his wealth and kind heart. He had come that morning to meet the school board about starting a new scholarship program for poor but talented children. Everyone respected him, the teachers, the principal, and even the city officials. As Adrian walked toward the building, the sunlight glinted off his watch. He had everything: money, success, and fame. But there was something missing in his life, something he never spoke about. Years ago, he had loved a woman deeply, a woman who had suddenly disappeared without a word. He never saw her again. All he had left was a memory that sometimes came back to him in dreams. When Adrian entered the school, Mrs. Warren, the principal, came rushing to greet him. "Mr. Cole, what an honor to have you here," she said, shaking his hand warmly. "Please, this way." He smiled politely. "Thank you. I'm here to talk about helping children who can't afford such schools. I believe every child deserves a chance." Mrs. Warren smiled, though not sincerely. "Of course, we believe in helping too. But, you know how things are. Some children just can't fit into our environment." Adrian frowned slightly at her words but didn't say anything. He was used to such attitudes. He'd seen how people looked down on the poor. It always bothered him, but he also knew that real change took time. While Mrs. Warren went to fetch some papers, Adrian decided to take a short walk around the campus. As he stepped outside, he noticed a woman standing near the garden, cleaning the floor with a bucket beside her. Her back was turned, but something about her posture, the way she moved, seemed familiar. He watched for a moment, curious. The woman turned slightly to wring out her cloth, and Adrian froze. His heart skipped a beat. The face, tired yet gentle, older but unmistakable, was one he hadn't seen in years. "Maria," he whispered under his breath. He couldn't believe it. It was her, the woman he had once loved deeply, the woman who had disappeared from his life without saying goodbye. For a moment, he just stood there, not knowing what to do. Maria, on the other hand, didn't notice him. She was busy cleaning, lost in her thoughts. When she finally stood up and turned around, her eyes met his. She froze. The cloth in her hand slipped and fell to the floor. Time seemed to stop between them. "Maria," Adrian finally said, his voice soft but full of emotion. "Mr. Cole?" she whispered, unable to believe her eyes. She hadn't seen him in almost 8 years. Back then, he was a young businessman who had hired her as a housemaid when she was new in the city. They had grown close over time, but when she discovered she was pregnant, fear and shame had made her leave quietly, never telling him the truth. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them was thick with memories. You work here?" Adrian asked finally. His voice was calm, but his eyes were full of questions. Maria nodded slowly. "Yes, I clean the classrooms. It's an honest job." Adrian took a deep breath. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you leave?" Maria looked down. "I didn't want to be a burden, Adrian. You had your dreams, your business. I didn't want to ruin your life." He shook his head slowly. "Ruin my life? Maria, I searched for you everywhere. I even went back to your village, but no one knew where you had gone." She didn't know what to say. Tears filled her eyes. "I had nowhere else to go. I just wanted to raise my daughter quietly." Adrian's heart began to race. "Daughter?" he asked softly. Maria looked at him, unsure what to say. Before she could answer, a small voice called from outside the gate, "Mama!" They both turned. Sophia was standing there, holding a small notebook in her hands. She had walked all the way to the school to give her mother the lunchbox she had forgotten. Her smile was innocent and full of love. Maria quickly wiped her tears and went to her. "Sophia, why did you come? You shouldn't have walked alone." "I wanted to give you this, Mama," Sophia said, handing her the lunchbox. Then she looked up and noticed Adrian standing nearby. "Who is he?" she asked softly. Adrian's heart stopped for a moment. The little girl's eyes, they were his eyes. The same color, the same spark. He suddenly felt dizzy. He looked at Maria, his voice trembling. "Maria, is she?" Maria's lips quivered, and she looked down. "Yes," she whispered, barely audible. "She's your daughter." For a moment, Adrian couldn't speak. His chest felt tight, his throat dry. He looked at Sophia again, the girl he never knew existed, the child he had unknowingly longed for all these years. He slowly knelt down and smiled gently. "Hello, Sophia," he said softly. "I'm a friend of your mother's." Sophia smiled shyly. "Hello, sir." Adrian stood up, still stunned, trying to process everything. He looked at Maria with a mix of joy and pain. "All these years, and I never knew," he whispered. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to protect her. I didn't know how to tell you." Adrian looked at both of them, his heart overflowing. He knew, at that very moment, that his life had changed forever. And neither Maria nor Sophia realized yet that this unexpected meeting, right here, outside the school that had rejected them, was only the beginning of something that would soon shake everyone inside those tall walls. Adrian stood there for a long moment, trying to understand everything that had just happened. His mind was full of questions, his heart pounding in disbelief. The little girl standing beside Maria, her soft brown hair, her curious eyes, her shy smile, everything about her reminded him of his own childhood pictures. It was as if he was looking at a small reflection of himself. "Maria," he said quietly, still staring at Sophia. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Maria looked down, her fingers twisting the edge of her apron. "I was scared," she said softly. "Back then I had nothing, no home, no family to help me. You were already becoming successful, and I didn't want to ruin your life with my problems. I thought it was better if you never knew." Adrian shook his head slowly, his voice full of pain. "Ruined my life? Maria, do you know what it was like searching for you for years? I thought something terrible had happened. And now I find out I have a daughter I never even met." Sophia looked up at them both, confused. "Mama, what's happening?" she asked. Maria knelt down and gently held her daughter's face. "Nothing bad, my love," she whispered. "This man, he's someone I knew a long time ago." Adrian knelt down too, his voice trembling slightly. "Sophia," he said kindly, "do you like studying?" Sophia's face lit up. "Yes, sir. I love books. I want to be a teacher one day." Adrian smiled, though his eyes were misty. "A teacher, That's wonderful." Then he looked at Maria again, his tone turning serious. "She's bright, Maria. I can see it. She deserves better than this." Maria sighed softly. "I tried, Adrian. I went to this school to give her a chance. But they turned us away. They said she doesn't belong here." Adrian's eyes darkened. "They said that?" he asked sharply. Maria nodded. "The principal said the school isn't suitable for children like her, for children of maids." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Adrian straightened up, his expression hardening. "Then they don't know who they're talking about," he said firmly. Maria frowned slightly. "Adrian, please don't make a scene. I don't want trouble. I just wanted to give her a chance." Adrian looked at her and said, "No, Maria, you've done enough. It's time someone else stands up for her." He turned and walked toward the main building. Maria hesitated but followed him, holding Sophia's hand tightly. As they entered the school, the receptionist's eyes widened. She quickly stood up, recognizing the man in front of her. "Mr. Cole." "Good morning, sir," she said nervously. Adrian didn't waste time. "Is Mrs. Warren in her office?" he asked in a calm but sharp voice. "Yes, sir," the woman replied quickly. Without another word, Adrian walked straight to the principal's office. Maria and Sophia followed behind, unsure what would happen next. When they entered, Mrs. Warren stood up immediately, smiling brightly. "Mr. Cole, what a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect you back so soon." Adrian's face was serious. "Mrs. Warren, I came here this morning to discuss scholarships for underprivileged children. But now I've discovered something far more important." The principal blinked, confused. "I don't understand, sir." He pointed toward Maria and Sophia, who stood quietly by the door. "Yesterday, this woman came to your office asking for her daughter's admission, and you rejected her." Mrs. Warren frowned slightly. "Oh yes, I remember her. I explained politely that our school might not be the right environment." Adrian interrupted, his voice cold. "Not the right environment for what?" "For a maid's daughter." The room fell silent. Mrs. Warren looked uneasy. Mr. Cole, please understand. We have a reputation to maintain. Some students come from very different social backgrounds. It's hard for them to adjust. Adrian cut her off again, this time more firmly. Do you know who this little girl is? The principal looked puzzled. No, sir. Should I? Adrian took a deep breath and said clearly, She is my daughter. The words hung in the air like thunder. Mrs. Warren's face went pale. Your daughter? She stammered. Yes, Adrian said firmly. And yesterday you insulted both her and her mother, the woman who once worked here, the same woman who raised this beautiful, intelligent child all on her own. The principal stood speechless, her lips trembling. Mr. Cole, I had no idea. Exactly, Adrian said sharply. You judged them before even knowing their story. You looked at their clothes and decided they weren't good enough. Do you know what that says about the school? Mrs. Warren lowered her eyes, unable to speak. Adrian's voice softened, but his tone was still strong. Education is not just for the rich, Mrs. Warren. It's for every child with a dream. And Sophia deserves to be here as much as anyone else. He turned to Maria and gently took Sophia's hand. From today onward, he said, Sophia will study here, not because of who I am, but because she has earned it. She's bright, kind, and determined. She's the kind of student this school should be proud to have. Mrs. Warren nodded quickly, her face flushed with embarrassment. Of course, Mr. Cole. We'll make the arrangements immediately. Adrian looked back at her and said quietly, Let this be a lesson, Mrs. Warren. Never judge a child by her mother's job. Sometimes the people we look down upon are the ones who carry the purest hearts. When they left the office, Maria felt tears roll down her cheeks. She couldn't believe what had just happened. Sophia looked up at her mother and whispered, Mama, I can study here now. Maria nodded, smiling through her tears. Yes, my love, you can. Adrian smiled gently at both of them. It's time the world knows who you really are, Maria. A mother who never gave up, and a daughter who deserves the world. As they stood outside the school, the sun shone brighter than before. For the first time in years, Maria felt proud. Not because of what Adrian had done, but because life had finally seen the truth she always believed in. Neither she nor Sophia knew that this moment, this truth revealed, would soon change not just their lives, but the heart of the entire school. The next morning, the news about what had happened in the principal's office spread through the entire school like wildfire. Teachers whispered in the hallways, students stared curiously, and even the janitor couldn't stop talking about it. Everyone was shocked that the maid's daughter, the same girl they had turned away just a day earlier, was actually the child of Adrian Cole, the school's biggest donor and one of the most respected men in the city. Maria felt nervous as she walked into the school courtyard with Sophia. She held her daughter's hand tightly. Everything felt different now. People were looking at them, not with pity or rejection, but with surprise and even fear. The same receptionist who had ignored them before suddenly smiled politely. Good morning, Mrs. Maria, she said in a sweet voice. Please, this way. The principal is waiting for you. Maria nodded softly, though she still couldn't believe it. She whispered to Sophia, Don't be scared, my love. Just be yourself. Sophia smiled and squeezed her hand. I'm not scared, Mama. You said education makes us strong. When they entered the office, Mrs. Warren stood up quickly. She looked like she hadn't slept much. Good morning, Mrs. Maria. Sophia, she said awkwardly. Please have a seat. Adrian was already there, sitting calmly with a cup of coffee. He smiled warmly at Sophia. Good morning, princess. Ready for your first day? Sophia nodded eagerly, her eyes sparkling. Yes, sir. Maria smiled faintly, but her heart was heavy. She didn't want Sophia to think that being accepted only happened because of who her father was. She wanted her daughter to know her worth came from her kindness, her hard work, and her dreams, not from someone's name. Mrs. Warren cleared her throat nervously. Mr. Cole, I just wanted to say again how deeply sorry I am for the misunderstanding. It was a terrible mistake. Adrian looked at her calmly. I'm not here for an apology, Mrs. Warren. I'm here for change. The principal blinked. Change. Yes, he said firmly. Yesterday you rejected a child not because she wasn't qualified, but because of her background. That's not education, that's prejudice. If this school truly wants to stand for excellence, it must also stand for equality. Mrs. Warren swallowed hard. Of course, Mr. Cole. You're absolutely right. Good, Adrian continued. Then I suggest we start by creating a new scholarship, one that helps children from humble families, children who have potential but no means. Let's call it the Maria Scholarship Fund. Maria's eyes widened. Adrian, no, you don't have to. He smiled at her gently. I want to. You worked harder than anyone I know, Maria. You sacrificed everything for Sophia's future. This is the least I can do, not just for you, but for all the mothers like you. Mrs. Warren nodded eagerly, trying to hide her discomfort. That's a wonderful idea, Mr. Cole. We can start the program next month. Not next month, Adrian said calmly. Now. And I'll personally sponsor the first 10 students. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She didn't know what to say. Sophia looked up at her father with admiration. Papa, does that mean more kids like me can come to the school? Adrian smiled. Yes, sweetheart. Every child who dreams big should have a place to learn, no matter who their parents are. There was a soft knock at the door. One of the teachers entered, the same one who had turned Maria away at the gate 2 days ago. Her face turned red when she saw Maria and Sophia. I just wanted to welcome our new student, she said awkwardly. Sophia smiled kindly. Thank you, ma'am. The teacher looked at Maria with guilt in her eyes. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was wrong. Maria gave a small nod. Thank you. I just hope you treat every parent kindly from now on, not just the ones who look important. The teacher looked down, ashamed. Later that day, Sophia was taken to her new classroom. The other students stared curiously when she entered, whispering quietly. Some looked impressed, others jealous. But Sophia didn't seem bothered. She walked straight to an empty desk, opened her book, and smiled. When the teacher introduced her, she said proudly, "This is Sophia Cole. Let's all welcome her." But Sophia stood up and said politely, "My name is Sophia. My mom's name is Maria. She's a maid, and she works very hard. I'm proud of her." The classroom went silent. A few kids looked surprised, but one little boy clapped softly. Then another joined in. Soon, the whole class was clapping for her. The teacher's eyes filled with emotion. Meanwhile, outside the room, Maria stood quietly by the door, listening. Her heart swelled with pride. For the first time, she realized her daughter didn't need anyone's name or power to shine. She had her own light. At the end of the day, Adrian drove them home. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold. Sophia sat in the back seat, humming happily. "Did you like your first day?" Adrian asked. Sophia grinned. "It was perfect. I even made a friend. Her dad's a gardener." Adrian chuckled. "That's wonderful." Maria looked out the window, her eyes glistening. "Thank you, Adrian, for everything you did today." He shook his head. "Don't thank me. You built this life for her, Maria. I just helped open a door." Maria smiled softly. Sometimes, one open door is all a dream needs. As they reached home, Sophia ran to hug her mother tightly. "Mama, I'll make you proud. One day, I'll be a teacher like you wanted." Maria hugged her back, whispering, "You already make me proud, my love." Adrian watched them quietly, his heart full. He knew their journey wasn't over, but he also knew that something had changed forever. The walls that had once kept them apart were gone, replaced by truth, respect, and love. And though the world outside still had its judgments and divisions, inside that little home, there was only peace. The kind that comes when courage meets kindness, and when truth finally finds its voice. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Life began to feel normal again, but this time it was a new kind of normal, one filled with hope and quiet happiness. Sophia had settled into her school beautifully. She woke up early every morning, packed her little blue school bag, and hugged Maria tightly before leaving. "I'll study hard today, Mama," she would say with her bright smile. Maria always smiled back and replied, "That's my girl." At first, some parents at the school still whispered when they saw her. They couldn't forget that she was once just a maid's daughter. But slowly, their opinions started to change. Sophia wasn't just smart. She was kind, helpful, and full of life. She often helped her classmates with lessons, shared her lunch with those who forgot theirs, and always greeted her teachers with respect. Even the children who once looked down on her began to admire her. One afternoon, Sophia came home running, her face glowing with excitement. "Mama, guess what? I got the highest marks in my class," she shouted. Maria laughed and hugged her tightly. "I knew you could do it, my love." Adrian visited often. He wasn't just a rich man in a suit anymore. He was becoming part of their small family. Sometimes he'd help Sophia with her homework, or bring her new books and crayons. On weekends, he'd take them both to the park or out for ice cream. For Maria, it still felt strange sometimes. After all the years of struggling alone, she now had someone who cared and wanted to be part of their lives. But Maria was cautious. She had built her world on her own, piece by piece, and she didn't want to lose herself in comfort or depend on someone else again. One evening, as the sun set behind their small house, Adrian sat at the table watching Maria prepare dinner. "You've done an amazing job, you know," he said quietly. Maria looked at him and smiled. "I just did what any mother would do." "No," he said softly. "You did more than that. You gave her strength. You made her believe she could be more than what the world saw her as." "That's rare, Maria." Maria looked down at her hands. "Maybe, but I just want her to have a better life. I never wanted her to feel ashamed of who we are." Adrian nodded. "And she isn't. You taught her to be proud of her roots. You taught her to value kindness over status. I think that's what makes her special." Sophia ran into the room then, waving a drawing. "Look, Papa. I made this for you and Mama." It was a crayon picture of three people holding hands. A tall man, a woman in a dress, and a small girl between them. Above the picture, she had written, "My family." Maria's heart melted when she saw it. She hadn't expected to ever be part of something that felt so whole again. She gently touched Sophia's cheek. "It's beautiful, my love." As time went on, the school also began to change. Inspired by Adrian's Maria Scholarship Fund, several more children from poor families joined. They came from different backgrounds: a driver's son, a tailor's daughter, a gardener's child, and they all studied together. The teachers noticed something wonderful. The children didn't care about social class. They played together, learned together, and supported each other. The atmosphere of the school became warmer and more inclusive than ever before. One day, Mrs. Warren, the principal, invited Maria to the school for a special event. "We're having an assembly," she said, "and we'd be honored if you could attend." Maria was nervous but agreed. When she arrived, she found the entire school gathered in the courtyard. Adrian was sitting in the front row. Mrs. Warren took the stage and spoke into the microphone. "Today, we celebrate a new beginning for our school," she said. "A beginning that reminds us education belongs to every child, no matter where they come from. And for that, we must thank one very special woman, Maria." Maria's eyes widened. The crowd began to applaud. Sophia was grinning proudly from the front row, clapping louder than anyone else. Mrs. Warren continued, "Because of Maria's story and her courage to fight for her daughter's future, our school has learned something priceless. That true worth has nothing to do with money or titles, but with love and determination." Maria felt tears fill her eyes as she stepped forward. She wasn't used to standing in front of so many people. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I don't know what to say. I'm just a mother who wanted her child to study. I never thought my story mattered." She paused, then looked at Sophia. "But maybe it does, because every parent, rich or poor, dreams the same dream, to see their child happy and educated. If my story can remind anyone of that, then I'm grateful." The whole audience clapped again. Sophia ran to her mother and hugged her tightly. "You're my hero, Mama," she whispered. That night, after the event, Maria sat outside under the stars. Adrian joined her quietly. You see, he said softly, you didn't just change your daughter's life. You changed a school. Maybe even more. Maria smiled faintly. I didn't mean to. I just wanted her to have a chance. Adrian looked at her with admiration. Sometimes, the smallest fight creates the biggest change. Inside, Sophia was sitting at the table, reading her books. Her soft voice echoed through the little house as she practiced her speech for a school contest. One day, she read aloud, I want to open a school for children who can't afford education, because I know how it feels to be told you don't belong. Maria felt her throat tighten with emotion. She looked at Adrian and whispered, She's going to do great things. Adrian smiled. She already is. As the night grew quiet, the three of them sat together, feeling something rare and beautiful peace. They had walked through pain, rejection, and fear, but had come out stronger and closer. It wasn't just a new beginning for Sophia, it was a new beginning for all of them. Years passed, and life slowly settled into a rhythm that was both peaceful and fulfilling. Sophia grew taller, her eyes brighter, her confidence stronger. The little girl who once stood outside the school gates in tears was now one of its top students. She often stayed back after classes to help her teachers or tutor younger children who struggled with lessons. Everyone in the school admired her, not because of her father's name, but because of her heart. Maria still worked, though not as a maid anymore. Adrian had helped her start a small catering business. It wasn't easy at first, but Maria was determined. Her food was full of warmth and care, and soon people began to talk about Maria's kitchen. A little food service run by a woman who cooked with love. She hired other women who were once housemaids too, giving them jobs and dignity. Every evening, Adrian would visit their home. Sometimes he brought flowers, sometimes books for Sophia, and sometimes just himself, tired from work but happy to be there. Their bond had grown naturally, without promises or pressure, just respect and understanding. One evening, as the sun set behind the city skyline, Sophia sat on the porch reading. She was now 15, thoughtful and wise beyond her years. Mama, she said, looking up from her book, can I ask you something? Maria looked up from her cooking. Of course, my love. Sophia hesitated. Why didn't you ever tell me about Papa before he found us? Maria paused for a long moment. The question she had always feared had finally come. She wiped her hands and sat beside Sophia. Because I was scared, she said honestly. I didn't know how he would react, or if he'd even believe me. I thought maybe it was better to let you grow up without expectations. I wanted you to be strong on your own. Sophia nodded slowly. I understand, Mama, but I'm glad he found us. He makes you smile. Maria smiled softly. Yes, he does. Later that week, the school held a big ceremony. It was the 5th anniversary of the Maria Scholarship Fund. The courtyard was filled with students, teachers, and parents. Adrian stood proudly on the stage beside Maria and Sophia. Reporters had gathered too, wanting to cover the event that had transformed the school. The ceremony began with music and speeches. Then, the principal took the microphone and said, 5 years ago, this school made a mistake. We turned away a child who deserved to be here. But that mistake led to something extraordinary. It taught us compassion, and it gave birth to this scholarship, which has now helped over 200 children receive education. Today, we honor the woman who inspired it all, Maria Cole. The audience burst into applause. Maria's hands trembled as she stepped forward. She never liked attention, but this moment was different. She wasn't standing there as a maid or a poor woman anymore. She was standing as someone who had changed lives. She took a deep breath and spoke softly but firmly. Years ago, I came here as a mother desperate for her daughter's future. I was turned away because I was judged by my job, not my heart. But I learned something: you can reject a person, but you can't reject the truth. And the truth is that every child, rich or poor, deserves a chance. Her voice trembled slightly as she looked at Sophia. My daughter taught me that strength doesn't come from wealth. It comes from belief. Belief that you matter, that your dreams matter. There was silence for a moment, and then thunderous applause. Many in the crowd wiped away tears. Even Mrs. Warren, now older and humbler, stood clapping with pride. After the event, a reporter came up to Sophia and asked, "You must be so proud of your parents. What do you think makes their story special?" Sophia smiled warmly. "Because it's not just their story. It's a story for everyone who was ever told they're not enough. My mom was a maid, but she's also my hero. She proved that love and hard work can change everything." That night, after the celebration, Adrian invited Maria and Sophia to a small dinner at the park where they first went together years ago. The air was cool, and fairy lights hung from the trees. Sophia laughed as she chased fireflies, her laughter echoing softly in the air. Adrian looked at Maria and said quietly, "You know, I used to think success meant power and money, but now I know real success is seeing your child happy. Seeing people smile because of something good you've done." Maria smiled, her eyes full of warmth. "Maybe success is just being remembered for kindness." Adrian nodded. "Then you're the most successful person I know." For a moment, they sat in silence, watching Sophia play. Then Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Maria looked surprised. "Adrian, what is that?" He smiled. "Nothing too grand. Just a reminder." He opened it to reveal a small silver pendant shaped like a book, engraved with the words, "For the woman who taught me what love truly means." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Adrian," he gently placed it in her hand. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I'm proud. Proud of you, proud of our daughter, proud of the life we built together." At that moment, Sophia ran back, holding a glowing firefly in her small hands. "Look, Papa, Mama. It's so pretty." Adrian smiled. "It is, sweetheart. Just like your mother." They laughed together, the sound mixing with the soft night breeze. The world around them seemed peaceful, the stars brighter than ever. As they walked home, Sophia walked between them, holding both their hands. Maria looked at her daughter, then at Adrian, and felt her heart full of gratitude. Years of struggle, pain, and rejection had finally turned into something beautiful, something real. The truth that once broke her heart had now become the truth that changed her life. And though Maria never dreamed of riches or fame, she had something far greater. A daughter who believed in her, a man who respected her, and a life built on love, dignity, and courage. Because in the end, it wasn't just a story about a maid's daughter or a rich man's return. It was a story about hope, the kind of hope that starts small but grows strong enough to change the world.